Well, up first, let's get to the latest numbers. In India, recorded 78,524 new cases of coronavirus and 971 deaths in the last 24 hours, taking India's COVID tally past the 68 lakh mark. According to the government figures, the total COVID cases in the country now stand at 68 lakh 35,655, with 1 lakh 5,526 deaths in all. The death rate is steady at 1.5%, and daily positivity rate has increased to 6.5% as almost 12 lakh tests have been conducted in the last 24 hours. Well, let's take a look at the world figures as well. The United States is the top of that list, followed by India. Now, look at the issue of how India is testing coronavirus cases, even as the numbers of cases have dipped over the last week. Questions have been raised about India's increasing reliance on the not-so-reliable antigen testing versus the more reliable RT-PCR test, which is considered the gold standard for testing. Now, one of the aspects that has emerged is of how state governments have been continuously and arbitrarily reducing how much private labs can charge for the RT-PCR test. In fact, we'll just bring up the numbers of how states are charging differently for the RT-PCR test. Now, this means the labs are making a loss per test, and off the record, some of the smaller labs have told NDTV that this means they will cut down on these tests as it's not feasible for them to continue making losses in conducting RT-PCR tests. In fact, Pathologists Association in Haryana has even written to the government objecting after the cost of tests there was brought down from 1,600 rupees to 1,200 rupees. Well, to talk more about that, we're joined by Dr. G.R. Gupta, President, Association of Practicing Pathologists in Haryana. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on NDTV. Tell us, what are your concerns?
See, our concern is that government arbitrarily reduced the price from 16 to 1,200, even without discussing the organization, which is the umbrella organization of all the pathologists in private sector as well as in government sector of Haryana. They did not discuss with us. They arbitrarily reduced the price. Now, the reason for this, which government is giving, that Haryana Medical Corporation, they invited a tender, and some labs in Gurgaon, they were ready to do tests at 1,200 rupees. So they are saying if they can do at 1,200 rupees, why other pathologists they cannot do it? But they are not looking into the main point that they are getting samples which are collected by civil hospital authorities, while we have to collect sample from houses, and there is a cost involved in collection of these things. So we requested government that you increase the price from 1,200 to 1,600. In Chandigarh, the price is 2,000 rupees. In Delhi, it is 2,400. In Punjab, it is 1,600. So why to reduce it to 1,200 in Haryana? Government is not providing us any kit at subsidized rate. They are not providing us BTM free of cost. They are not giving us PPE free of cost. So what right they have to reduce the price arbitrarily without discussing with us?
Right, sir. And also the dangers, as you know, we've heard this off the record from some of the smaller labs that, you know, can't withstand this reduced prices, is that then they'll just stop offering RT-PCR tests, that they won't do it. They'd rather go in for the antigen testing, which we know is not as reliable, and we need more and more RT-PCR tests to be, conducted so that we have the correct figures out there, isn't it?
Yeah, right now the RT-PCR is the gold standard, and antigenic test, the sensitivity is at least 10 to 20% less than RT-PCR test. So if you rely on that test, you will miss a lot of positive cases.
So what are you hearing from...
government should promote...
Right, and so tell us what the smaller labs are saying, because we need the testing to be across the country. We need it to be in rural areas. We need the laboratories helping the government in carrying out all these tests and, finding where this coronavirus has spread. So if you can tell us, what are some of the things that, the smaller labs are saying regarding this bringing down of the RT-PCR test price?
See, we members who are providing services, we are the persons who are providing services to the rural area, because we are providing service at the doorsteps. And government is not taking us into confidence, and they are relying more on the corporate labs who are sitting there in Gurgaon. They should promote the labs which are sitting all across the Haryana.
Right, sir. And after this letter was written by all of you, that letter that has been written raising all these concerns, have you got any sort of response from the government?
No, there is no response. Yesterday we got a letter where they were again saying that the price will be 1200 only for RT-PCR. They are firm on their stand.
All right. And do you plan to do something, to further, push about this issue about, the lowering costs of the RT-PCR test, the price of the RT-PCR test, and how this will in the long term actually lead to less testing and less reliable testing?
See, we have a meeting of executive members of APP on Sunday, and there we will take a decision. In democracy, you have only 3 options. You can give your representation, you can do discussion, which you have already done. Now we are left with 2 options, either agitation or legal actions. So our executive body will decide our next course of action.
All right. Well, there on your screens, you can see, the different costs being offered, the different prices for that RT-PCR test, and, how it differs from state to state. And as Dr. Gupta was telling us, in Haryana, it's been brought down to 1200. Thank you so much for speaking to us here at NDTV.
Thank you. Thank you.